Welcome to Twists of Life, where every story has an unexpected turn. Stories of joy and sorrow, hope and redemption, just like the life we all live. Make yourself comfortable. It's time to begin. Sarah grew up under her father's care. At the age of 6, her mother left them, heading to Italy with a new partner. In all the 16 years that followed, she never once remembered her daughter's birthday. Now Sarah was 22, a university diploma almost in hand, and dreaming of a career as a banker, like her father, with the prospect of eventually taking his place at the head of the family's financial empires. However, the path to this goal lay through internships, first in England, then in Belgium, and only after that did her father promise to take her under his wing. Her entire life from the age of 9 to 17 was subject to a strict schedule, planned out almost minute by minute. Classes at an elite gymnasium with intensive language study, music lessons, swimming practice. Once a week, she unfailingly attended tutors for economics and law. This rhythm left practically no time for a personal life, for meeting friends, which her father was incredibly happy about. He jealously guarded his daughter from outside eyes, especially male ones, and even when Sarah was already pursuing higher education at university, he kept her every step under constant control. Her only solace and friend was the neighbor's daughter, Emily. Their interactions were limited to the confines of either Emily's or Sarah's yard. This continued until a postgraduate student named Michael enrolled at their university. The young man was working on his dissertation and occasionally visited his academic advisor, who, by a fortunate coincidence, happened to be the dean of Sarah's faculty. Their paths crossed at the dean's office door. Michael was coming out, and Sarah was about to go in. They literally bumped heads. Usually composed and sensible, Sarah was overcome with complete confusion at the sight of the unfamiliar young man. Excuse me, I almost knocked you over," the girl hurried to apologize. "No, it was I who almost knocked you down." "I beg your pardon for God's sake," the young man replied in turn. "Oh, how awkward. Really inconvenient. Is Professor Charles Adams in?" "Yes, I just came from him. Please, come in." "Thank you." "Wait," the young man suddenly said. "Perhaps, as a sign of reconciliation and mutual apologies, we could have a cup of coffee?" Sarah, unaccustomed to such gestures of attention, looked at the stranger in surprise. "Coffee?" she repeated. "Yes. Don't you like coffee?" "Why, yes, I do. It's just, somehow—" Sarah tried to find the right word, not knowing how to explain that this was the first time she had been invited to such a meeting. "Unexpected?" "Why unexpected? A beautiful girl like you has surely received such invitations many times." "Well, yes," Sarah said shyly, and unexpectedly for herself agreed. "All right, let's have coffee. Let's meet in about 20 minutes in the foyer." "Excellent. I'll be waiting for you." Sarah would often recall this trembling excitement that flared up from meeting the young man. She had never experienced anything like it before. And it wasn't just her father's restrictions. No, she really just didn't have the time. And now she was almost a graduate. England loomed on the horizon. And suddenly, there was an intense desire to spend time with this young man. Having finished her conversation with the dean, Sarah went down to the foyer, where her new acquaintance was waiting for her. "Excuse me for making you wait. I'm a little late." Michael almost dropped his briefcase. It was the first time he had seen a girl apologize for being 2 minutes late. He had waited longer, and the girls not only didn't apologize, but seemed completely unfamiliar with the art. "Nonsense. You're not late," he smiled. "Perhaps we should introduce ourselves." "Oh, how scatterbrained of me. I didn't even say my name." Sarah blushed again and extended her hand. "Sarah." "Then I'm scatterbrained too. I didn't introduce myself either." The young man smiled and extended his hand in return. Michael. It's a pleasure to meet you, Sarah smiled, and her cheeks flushed from his handshake. His palm was surprisingly soft and warm, so pleasant to the touch. Sarah was overcome with immense excitement, and frightened by these new, unfamiliar sensations, she quickly withdrew her hand. Michael interpreted this in his own way. I'm sorry. Was my handshake unpleasant? No, it's just, we shook hands for quite a long time. Sarah tried to wriggle out of it. Let's go get coffee now. Let's, Michael agreed with a smile. He liked this unusual girl. They left the university building and stopped, unsure of where to go. There were 4 cafes located near the university, and they needed to decide which one to choose. Sarah, accustomed to establishments of a completely different level, suggested without hesitation, Let's go to Pegasus. You can have a proper lunch there. It's already lunchtime. Do you mind? Michael looked at his new acquaintance with even greater surprise. Pegasus. He had only walked past such restaurants. He knew perfectly well that it was a special place, and the prices there were, to put it mildly, far from budget-friendly. But admitting his modest financial situation to the girl was extremely embarrassing, so he merely nodded in agreement, vaguely wondering how he would pay in such an expensive place. But an even greater astonishment awaited Michael inside the restaurant. It suddenly turned out that Sarah was not just a guest here, but a regular. She had her favorite table, and the waiters greeted her like a distinguished person. Do you come to this restaurant often? Michael asked in surprise. Yes, Dad and I often have lunch and dinner here. They have very good chefs. You don't have to worry about the quality of the dishes. So Dad says, Ah, I see. That's good. Now Michael began to feel uneasy. Of course, he understood that children from different families studied at the university, but Sarah didn't give the impression of a flighty rich girl who attended classes only for the diploma and passed exams by paying, and this just didn't fit into his head. Sarah, why did you choose such an unusual profession for a girl? Rather, the profession chose me, Sarah smiled. In this restaurant, she felt at home, and that gave her a little confidence. With Michael, the situation was the exact opposite. He grew up in a simple working-class family, but his parents saw potential in their son and insisted on him getting a good education. He even managed to get a government-funded place after the army and received an increased scholarship. And then his abilities were noticed by the professors, and the young man, as they say, rose through the ranks. And now, at 28, he was already working on his dissertation. I see. Do your parents work in this field? Michael asked. Yes, my dad. But honestly, I like this field too. I guess genes played a role in choosing the profession. Although as a child, I dreamed of becoming an actress or a singer. Many girls dream of that as children, that's true. Michael, let's order something. I'm about to faint from hunger. What do you prefer? Sarah asked and handed him the menu. To be honest, I'm not hungry, Michael lied, although he was ravenous. He definitely couldn't afford his lunch, but 2 cups of coffee, certainly. Idiot, you have to pay for her lunch. You can't say, Excuse me, Sarah, I'm only paying for the coffee I drank. Nightmare. Where am I going to get that much money? Panic seized Michael. Sarah, as if reading his thoughts, said, Don't worry. Lunch is on me. I invited you here myself. Order whatever you like. Don't be shy. True, feeling like a poor freeloader was even more humiliating than just being poor. But Michael genuinely liked this girl even before she invited him to this restaurant, and he really didn't know what to do. Sarah came to his rescue. Michael, listen, it's fine. Don't make me feel awkward because I invited you here. I really did it purely out of habit. All right, then next time I'll invite and I'll pay. Agreed? Next time? Sarah couldn't believe her ears. Of course, if you accept my invitation. Of course I will, the girl replied timidly, Sarah didn't yet know how to make this happen or what to tell her father. She simply wasn't thinking about it now. She just wanted to continue talking to this nice young man for as long as possible. He was incredibly interesting, smart, educated. They spoke the same language and understood each other perfectly. About half an hour into their conversation, the phone rang, and Sarah suddenly remembered that she hadn't called her father after classes. She quickly grabbed her phone. "Hi, Daddy. Sorry, I got a little held up. I was just about to call you." She rattled into the receiver in one breath. "Hello, dear. Where are you now?" her father asked. "I stopped by our restaurant for lunch." "Excellent. I'll be there in half an hour. Please wait for me." "Yes, okay. I'll wait." Sarah looked at her phone in fright, then at Michael, and put the phone back in her bag in confusion. "Did something happen?" Michael understood from her expression. "I don't even know how to say it. My father will be here in half an hour." "Is he strict?" "Very." This was an understatement, but Sarah changed her mind about telling the truth. "How can I put it? Not very, but a little strict." "Are you afraid he'll see us together?" Michael realized. Sarah looked at her new acquaintance with hope. She so wanted to sit with him a little longer, just talk. But how could she explain it to Dad? "I won't be able to explain who you are to him," Sarah forced out. "Does he forbid you from seeing boys?" The young man again showed remarkable quickness of thought. "Yes," Sarah exhaled. "I understand. That's not a problem. Let's meet another time. I understand what a strict parent is like. Don't worry and don't be upset. We'll definitely have lunch or dinner together again." He took out a pen and notepad from his briefcase, wrote down his number, and handed it to Sarah. "Call me when you have a chance to meet." "Okay, I will. I'll find a way," Sarah said, and added a little quieter, "I'm sorry this happened, and thank you for understanding. I'm really embarrassed." "It's all right. I should go. Nice meeting you, Sarah dear." "It was very nice meeting you too," Sarah smiled back, although in reality, she wanted to cry from annoyance that their time together had ended so quickly. After Michael left, Sarah just sat, staring out the window. She was waiting for her father. Maybe I should talk to him openly? Tell him I met a guy? He's not some bum. He's a postgraduate student, so he's smart. Dad should like him, Sarah consoled herself. And then she immediately talked herself out of the idea. Yeah, if I remember Alex, I don't even want to introduce them. Alex was a guy who once came to visit their neighbors. He was only a couple of years older than Sarah. They were 15 and 17 respectively at the time. But her father decided that Alex was bothering Sarah and simply kicked him out of the house. And he ordered Sarah no dates or meetings until she finished her education. But now her diploma was almost in hand. Maybe Dad had changed his mind, and it was okay now? Sarah decided to risk it and talk to her father frankly. Her father arrived exactly half an hour after the call. You could always set your watch by him. Surprisingly, even when caught in traffic jams, he could accurately predict his arrival time. Mr. Robert Miller, that was Sarah's father's name, came to the table and kissed his daughter on the cheek. "Hello, dear. How are things at university? How are you feeling?" "Hi, Daddy. I need to talk to you." Sarah decided to get straight to the point, afraid that her resolve would soon leave her. "Important?" her father clarified. "Probably," Sarah evaded a direct answer. Well, I have something important to talk to you about, too. Who goes first?" "Can I?" Sarah asked for permission, not even guessing what her father wanted to tell her. "Of course, sunshine. I'm listening carefully. What happened?" "You see, it's like this. Remember you said I shouldn't see anyone until I finished my education?" "I remember," her father replied with a smile. "It seems we're thinking along the same lines." "Seriously?" Sarah rejoiced prematurely. "That's great. Anyway, I met a guy today. He's a postgraduate student, writing his dissertation with my dean. We talked a bit. He's a very interesting, educated young man. He's 28, served in the army, earns his own living, and is writing a very serious dissertation. Mr. Robert Miller's face changed, becoming more and more somber. Sarah saw that this story wasn't sparking her father's interest. But what he said next was something Sarah herself absolutely didn't like. "What's the point of this story?" her father asked. "I wanted to ask your permission to see Michael. You won't object, will you? I'm leaving for England in 2 months, and I wanted to relax a bit after studying and just spend time with a nice young man." "You will have that opportunity. That's exactly what I wanted to talk to you about," her father began in a tone that made Sarah uneasy. "You've finished your education. Internships in Europe are ahead, and it wouldn't be very good if you went there as an unmarried girl. Therefore, I would like to introduce you to a very interesting young man. His name is Nicholas. He is, of course, older than you, but he's smart, well off, promising, and will be a reliable protection and support for you." Sarah looked at her father in surprise. She didn't understand what he was talking about. "He has seen you, and he likes you very much. He and I have already discussed all the details and nuances of your life together. Both of us are satisfied. All that's left is for you to meet and set the wedding date." "Dad, wait. What wedding? I don't want to marry a moneybag. I want to marry for love." Sarah tried to object. "No problem. You'll see him and fall in love immediately. He's a very decent man and attractive." "I don't need decent attractive. I need someone whom I choose with my heart. Listen to me, child. I already chose your mother with my heart. And how did that end?" "What does that have to do with anything?" "It has to do with the fact that you should choose with your head, not your heart. The heart is a bad advisor, a very bad one. But I don't want to live with someone I don't like." "Why do you think you won't like him?" "Dad, how old is he?" 32. Only 10 years older than you. Is that a lot?" "No," Sarah admitted honestly. "Dad, but I like Michael." "Listen, you saw this Michael for the first time in your life today. It's quite possible that you won't like him at all when you get to know him better. Besides, for comparison, you can meet Nicholas, and then you can decide for yourself who you like more. Is it possible you might like Nicholas? Or are you rejecting him from the start, just because I'm suggesting him?" "No, of course not. I will definitely meet him. It's just unexpected." "Agreed. Unexpected. I myself haven't gotten used to the idea of you getting married yet." "I'm not getting married yet," Sarah objected. "But you might," her father corrected himself. Although it was clear that he had already made up his mind. "Dad, can I ask one more question?" "Of course. And if I absolutely don't like Nicholas, and Michael turns out to be a good person, can I marry Michael?" Mr. Robert Miller looked at his daughter in surprise, as if mentally asking, "Are you serious or just mocking me?" "Of course not." But he said something else aloud. "I think you can. But I also need to meet your Michael and see him." "Okay, thank you." "Thank you for what? For hope?" "Hope. Hope," her father repeated thoughtfully. "Everyone has a right to hope. But life often throws such curveballs, and hopes don't come true. That's the truth of life, alas." "I don't like that kind of truth," Sarah said, childishly offended. "All right, let's have lunch. Then we'll go home. And by evening you need to get ready. Nicholas is coming over." "Today?" Sarah couldn't believe it. "Of course. Why delay? You need to get to know each other a little before the wedding. Get used to each other." At that moment, Sarah clearly realized that her father wouldn't even consider other candidates. He had already decided everything, and no Michael, William, or Andrew had a single chance, because a certain Nicholas had already been appointed to the role of husband. This was the most offensive part. Sarah was deprived not only of hope, but also of the right to choose. Sarah drove home in complete despair. It felt like she had been run over by a steamroller, simply crushed. Sarah knew her father's character well and understood that further discussion on this topic was pointless. The only thing she would achieve was that her father would increase his control, and the possibility of seeing Michael would disappear without a trace. And Sarah really didn't want that. Therefore, she decided to play along with her father, pretend that she liked Nicholas. Her father would relax and lower his guard, which Sarah would certainly take advantage of. Sarah waited for the evening with unusual excitement. On the one hand, she was curious to see the man her father intended for her husband. On the other hand, she was afraid of what would happen if she absolutely didn't like him. After all, no arguments affected her father once he had made a decision. Nicholas was supposed to arrive at 8. Her father told Sarah to be ready and dress up. Sarah didn't object and got completely ready. She even wanted to make an impression on the uninvited guest. Nicholas arrived exactly at 8, as befitting a polite and punctual gentleman. Sarah descended from the second floor, terribly nervous. Entering the living room, she saw Nicholas standing half-turned. A tall, well-built, very handsome young man. He turned around, and Sarah froze in place. On his left cheek, there was a huge scar, stretching from his eye to his lower jaw. The scar was deep and very noticeable. How awful, Sarah thought, barely managing not to say it aloud. Sarah, dear, meet Nicholas, my partner in some financial matters. I turned to Nicholas. Nick, this is my beautiful daughter, Sarah, dear. Please meet each other. I need to leave you for a couple of minutes. Her father left, and Sarah stood rooted to the spot at the living room entrance. She simply couldn't move from the shock. Nicholas began to approach, and Sarah wanted to scream and call for help. But she didn't, of course, understanding how ridiculous it would look. A pleasure to meet you, Sarah. Mr. Robert Miller has told me a lot about you. Likewise. But I'm meeting you for the first time today, Sarah said sarcastically. Nicholas pretended not to notice the sarcasm and gestured toward the sofa. Shall we sit? Let's. When they sat down on the sofa, Sarah sitting a meter away from the guest, Nicholas looked at the girl searchingly and unexpectedly said directly, Sarah, dear, I know what role is intended for you. I understand your doubts about me. My appearance frightens and repels you. I plan to have a series of plastic surgeries to get rid of this disfigurement, but I won't have time before the wedding. You might ask why I didn't have the surgeries earlier. I answer. First, there wasn't the financial possibility. Then there wasn't the time. Then there wasn't the necessity. Now all three components are present, and I am ready to go to a surgeon. So, if this bothers you, don't worry. It will be resolved soon. Sarah silently looked at her potential fiancé. She didn't even know what to say to him. Interesting. Will he always talk to himself, or will I at least occasionally be able to get a word in? Sarah thought with a smirk for some reason. Did something amuse you? Nicholas didn't understand. No, I'm sorry. I was thinking about something else, Sarah evaded. Although she knew she was behaving improperly, and to smooth things over, she decided to support him. It's very brave of you to decide on the surgery. Some people are so afraid of surgeons that they just accept it and live like that. To be honest, I had long accepted it myself. But I understand that a young girl will be uncomfortable being around such a disfigurement, so I decided on the surgery. You're not, Sarah began. Is it just that the scar is very noticeable, and that's why you were startled when you saw my face? Nicholas asked. I wasn't exactly startled, just didn't expect it. And she mentally cursed her father. He could have warned me. It's all right. I'm not offended. I'm used to that reaction from girls. He's strange. If he's seen that reaction, why didn't he have the surgery earlier? 6 months? A year ago? He didn't get rich yesterday, Sarah reasoned. Sarah, tell me, what are you interested in? What do you like? I'd like to know more about you. Sarah briefly told him about her childhood, hobbies, clubs. Nicholas listened attentively, as if mentally recording the information. You told me what you were forced to do. I'm asking what you like for yourself. What kind of music? What movies? What cuisine do you prefer? Sarah looked at Nicholas in surprise. Why are you so surprised by my question? I didn't think you were interested, Sarah said honestly. She was starting to like this man simply as a person. Of course, just like him, there was no talk of falling in love. Sarah, I'm not some monster or Bluebeard. I'm a normal person, and I really do like you very much. I first saw you 3 years ago at an event. You were with your father, and I haven't been able to forget you since. I would very much like to make you happy, Nicholas said, looking directly into her eyes. If you allow me, of course. Sarah was silent, not knowing what to say. If you absolutely don't like me or find me repulsive, I won't pursue you or anything else. I'll back off. But I would very much like to have a small chance. After all, everyone has the right to hope. The last phrase was decisive for Sarah. Just today she had said the same thing. All right, let's try. Thank you. He leaned forward and kissed her hand. Nicholas, let's use you informally. It's much more comfortable to talk, and it brings people closer, after all, Sarah suggested. I would be very happy if you would call me you informally. The man smiled sincerely. Then you can just call me Nick, and I'll call you Sarah. The girl smiled back. Her father returned and they went to dinner. At the table, the men did most of the talking. Sarah sat silently, watching what was happening, and at the same time wondering how she could meet Michael the next day. In the morning, Sarah dialed Michael's number. He answered almost immediately. Yes? A confident voice sounded. Hello, Michael, Sarah greeted hesitantly. Sarah, dear. He immediately recognized her. I'm so glad you called. How are you? No problems with your father yesterday because of me? No, everything's fine, don't worry. Can we meet today? Of course, I'd be very happy to. I'm completely free after 1. Excellent. Then let's meet at 2 in the Central Park, by the fountain. Agreed? I'll be very much looking forward to seeing you. Sarah had just hung up the phone when there was a knock at the door, and her father entered. Good morning, dear. How are you? How did you sleep? Good morning, Daddy. Everything's fine. What are your plans for today? I want to go to the salon and change my hairstyle. For some reason, I felt like changing my style. Well, new life, new hairstyle. That's what girls usually do. You won't object, will you? No, of course not. I didn't get a chance to ask yesterday. How did you like Nicholas? You know, I liked him, Sarah admitted honestly. Very intelligent and attentive. See? I told you. When are you meeting? I hope tomorrow, Sarah lied. You hope? Her father repeated. That's good. I think if you call him, it won't be a problem. He said he would call me himself today, and we'd arrange where to meet. This was true. They had indeed agreed on that. Excellent. I'm very happy, daughter. He's a very good person. I think so too. Thank you, Daddy. Sarah got out of bed, went over to her father, and kissed him on the cheek. You're a smart girl. I always knew that. Once I get you settled with someone reliable, I'll be at peace. All right, run along to the shower. I'll see you for breakfast. Sarah went to the shower, rejoicing at her quick thinking along the way. After breakfast, she returned to her room and began sorting through her wardrobe. She needed to choose an outfit that Michael would like, but that wouldn't raise questions from the staff, who, of course, reported everything to her father. If Sarah wore something too beautiful and dressy, the question would arise, why go to the salon dressed like that? So Sarah, without thinking too much, chose light cotton trousers and a light t-shirt that nicely emphasized her neckline but looked quite ordinary. Around 1 o'clock, Sarah left the house. She decided to use public transport and not call a taxi. Sarah rarely took the bus or minibus. Her father objected, but today she decided, if she was going to break the rules, she might as well go all out. And she took the bus. Sarah watched the surroundings with interest from the window. Passers-by walked by, each busy with their own affairs. They didn't care at all about what was happening in Sarah's soul, and in the girl's soul, a real storm of emotions was raging. She was trying to decide what to do and how to secretly meet Michael. And although he hadn't made such a proposal yet, Sarah felt that he would definitely ask her to see him. Having arrived at the Central Park by bus, Sarah got off and slowly walked towards the fountain. From a distance, she already saw Michael's familiar figure. He was looking around. In his hands was a huge bouquet of roses. "Where will I put them later? It's a shame to throw them away," Sarah thought sadly. Michael noticed the girl and waved. Sarah walked closer. "Hi," she simply said. "Good afternoon. I'm so glad to see you." "Me too," Sarah smiled. "Shall we switch to informal you right away?" "Let's." "Shall we walk around or sit somewhere?" "Let's sit somewhere," Sarah suggested. She knew perfectly well that a walk in a park in the city center wasn't the best idea. Too many people knew her there and could tell her father. And the place Michael would take her to was unlikely to be frequented by people from her circle. There she could relax and not worry. "Excellent. Today I'm inviting you my treat. Remember?" "Of course. Where shall we go?" "How about pizza?" Michael suggested. "With pleasure. I love pizza," Sarah agreed. She was a little nervous, wondering exactly where they would go. Sarah had a very sensitive stomach, so she was careful about choosing establishments. But to Sarah's surprise, Michael took her to a quite well-known and good pizza place. "What kind of pizza do you like?" Michael asked. "With ham, mushrooms, and double cheese," Sarah smiled. "And definitely with a cheese crust." Michael's mouth dropped open in surprise. "No way! Are you kidding?" "What do you mean?" Sarah didn't understand. "That's my favorite pizza." "Then we have the same taste," Sarah smiled. They ordered a huge pizza and a glass of apple juice each. As it turned out, their tastes also coincided in this. Sarah didn't like exotic fruits, except perhaps pineapple, and preferred apple juice. Michael said that he hadn't drunk any juice other than apple juice since childhood. They talked nonstop. The conversation was easy and very pleasant. It turned out that their tastes coincided not only in terms of food and drinks. They had so much in common that it felt as if they were conjoined twins. "That doesn't happen," Sarah said. "That people are so similar." "I used to think so too," Michael smiled. They felt so good together, and despite the presence of other customers, it seemed to them that there was no one else around. Sarah came back to her senses when her phone rang. It was her father calling. "Hello. How's your haircut? Are you still recognizable?" her father joked. Sarah suddenly realized that she needed to change her haircut somehow. Otherwise, she wouldn't be able to explain to her father where she had been all this time. But when she looked at the clock, she was even more frightened. It was already 6 in the evening. "For now, yes, Daddy." "Not right now. It's a little inconvenient to talk. Can I call you back later?" "Yes, of course. I just wanted to check in and tell you that I'm leaving for 3 days on business tomorrow. Did I tell you? I don't remember. I hope you and Nicholas behave yourselves." There was undoubtedly irony in his voice, but concern was also present. "Don't worry, Daddy. I promise you, everything will be perfectly fine." Sarah could barely contain her joy. 3 days. She would have 3 whole days with Michael. "All right. Should I pick you up from the salon, or can you manage?" her father clarified. "No need, Daddy. I won't be done for a while. I'll take a taxi." "Okay. See you at home." Sarah put her phone back in her purse and looked at Michael. Never before would she have said or done what she was about to say and do in the coming days. What are your plans for the next couple of days? Sarah asked directly. None yet. I'm on vacation right now. No need to go to work, just quietly writing my dissertation. Why do you ask? We can spend the next 2 days together. After that, Sarah paused, not knowing how to continue. After that, I'm leaving for a long time, for a year, to England for an internship. That's a shame. I'll miss you and wait. I'll really wait. Michael, do you have a place where no one could see or find us? Sarah ignored his words. My parents' country house. They only go there on weekends, and not always even then. And tomorrow is Thursday, so we can go there. We have a very nice country house. My grandfather built it. It was clear that Michael was nervous. He was an adult and perfectly understood why a girl would want to be alone with a guy. He, of course, liked the idea, but he didn't expect things to move so quickly. Even less did he expect the initiative to come from such a modest girl. And like Sarah, he couldn't know why she really wanted to speed things up. Very good. I'll buy groceries, take a taxi, and pick you up around 11. Is that okay? Sarah had never been so decisive and confident, as if some inner force was guiding her on what to do. Yes, of course. Excellent. Text me the address. Actually, no. I'll call you from the taxi. Sarah was terribly nervous, shocked by her own behavior, but she felt that this was exactly what she had to do. Sarah, tell me, are you absolutely sure everything is all right? Michael worried. He saw the girl's state and felt that she was somehow different. Yes, everything's fine, Michael. I need to go now. We'll definitely talk tomorrow. I'm really sorry. Yes, of course. No problem. I'll wait for your call tomorrow. Sarah stood up, looked at Michael, and smiled mysteriously. See you tomorrow. And thank you for a wonderful lunch. Sarah left the pizza place and headed towards the center. There were several salons there that she sometimes visited. She urgently needed to refresh her hairstyle so as not to arouse her father's suspicions. Her phone rang. It was Nicholas calling. Good evening, Sarah. How are you? How are you feeling? Hi. Sorry, it's not convenient to talk right now. I'm at the salon. Can I call you back later? Yes, of course. Enjoy your transformation. Sarah went into the salon. By a stroke of luck, the stylist she occasionally went to was free. Sarah asked her to shorten her hair a little and change the style, and at the same time, she handed her the bouquet of flowers. She couldn't just throw them away. These are for you, just to brighten your mood, Sarah said. Thank you so much, Sarah. Are you sure about your decision? Your current hairstyle is very beautiful. It suits you. Chloe, please, just do as I ask. Okay, as you say. The girl, who didn't understand anything, agreed. Sarah changed her hairstyle, called a taxi, and went home. Her father was already home. Seeing his daughter, he waved hello to her from the gazebo in the garden. Sarah, dear, come show off your transformation. Sarah entered the gazebo. Her father critically examined her new hairstyle and summarized. It turned out all right. Interesting. Well done. It suits you. Thanks, Daddy. Are you hungry? No. I had a snack in the city. I'm going to my room. I'm very tired. All these beauty treatments are terribly exhausting, Sarah lied. Women have their own problems and difficulties. What can you do? Beauty requires sacrifice. Go, sunshine. Get some rest. I'll drop by later. Okay, I'll be waiting for you, Sarah replied and hurried to her room. She needed to figure out how to leave for 2 days tomorrow without arousing suspicion from the staff, and most importantly, what story to invent so that the housekeeper, Mrs. Helen Davis, would believe her and not betray her to her father. This was the most difficult part of her plan. Sarah lay on the bed and, staring at the ceiling, made up stories. So far, none of the versions were suitable, and she needed to think quickly. She called her neighbor, Emily. Hi, are you busy? Hi, Sarah. No. Did something happen? I need your help. You're a pro at this kind of thing. Can you come over? I'll be right there. No problem. Em was intrigued. Emily was indeed a pro. She had gone away to see boys for a day or two many times, and always came up with such believable stories that even her parents believed her. Now all of Sarah's hope rested on Emily's talent for storytelling. Emily arrived 10 minutes later. Meeting Mr. Robert Miller in the garden, she easily lied that she urgently needed Sarah herself and went straight to her friend's room. "So, what's going on?" she asked from the doorway. "Come in. Close the door," Sarah asked. Emily, unlike Sarah, lived life to the fullest. She had dropped out of university after 3 years, claiming she hadn't decided on a profession. Her parents were understanding and allowed her to take a break. Em was a late child, which meant she had been spoiled from birth, and the girl did whatever she wanted. True, she wasn't arrogant, didn't hang out with strange crowds, didn't drink much, and didn't smoke at all. She just loved nightclubs and fun company. "Em, I need your help," Sarah began. "I figured that out." "What exactly?" "I need to run away from home for 2 days, but I don't know how to do it without arousing suspicion from the staff and questions from my father. He absolutely must not know about it, understand?" Emily looked at her friend intently for about 2 minutes. Sarah even started to get nervous about why she was silent for so long. "And are you going to tell me why?" Curious Em asked. Sarah hesitated. She didn't want to tell anyone, but she understood that if she didn't tell Emily, she simply wouldn't help. And without her help, Sarah definitely wouldn't manage. "I'll tell you a secret, but you won't tell anyone, okay?" "My lips are sealed," Emily swore, using her favorite phrase. And Sarah told her friend about Michael and about her father's decision to marry her off to the man with the terrible scar. Emily listened in silence, only occasionally waving her hands in indignation. When Sarah finished her story about tomorrow's plans, Emily finally said, "Simple. I don't understand how you even agreed to get married." "Em, you know my father. It's useless." "So maybe you should run away with this Michael?" Emily suggested. She would definitely do that, but Sarah couldn't. She knew that perfectly well. "I can't. I love Dad very much. I have no one but him. How can I leave him?" "Yes, I understand. Listen." Emily lowered her voice to a whisper. "Do I understand correctly that you want to take your relationship with this Michael to the next level right away?" Sarah's face turned red with embarrassment, and she nodded silently. "Beauty," Em exclaimed admiringly. "Are you really that smitten with him?" "Em, I just want my first time to be with a man I really like. Not this Nicholas. He's not a bad guy, generally speaking, but he doesn't make me feel the way Michael does." "Wait, so he'll be your first?" Emily couldn't believe what she was hearing. "Wow, you're a rarity, Sar, at 22. Amazing. And when and with whom could I have? I was under total control all the time. I couldn't even go to the movies here." "Well, yes, your father did go overboard with the control, of course. Oh well, I'll think now," Emily said. She thought for exactly 10 seconds, then jumped up abruptly and ran out of the room. "Mr. Miller! Mr. Miller! Can I have a word?" Sarah heard Emily's voice. For a moment she even got scared. What if Emily told her father everything? But why would she? Sarah asked herself. No, Em isn't like that. She's great and a true friend. 5 minutes later, Emily and her father entered the room. Em looked triumphant. Sarah had no idea what she had come up with, but she knew that her plan had worked, as always. "Sunshine, why didn't you ask me yourself?" her father asked, a question Sarah didn't know how to answer. Emily immediately jumped into the conversation. "Mr. Miller, I just wasn't completely sure myself if it would work out, but now it's definite, and I ran to Sarah, dear. So you're letting us go?" "Yes, of course. especially since I'm also leaving for 3 days. Have a good rest, girls. This is your time. Did Sarah tell you she's getting married? Yes, she already bragged about it, Em said enviously. Well, there you go. So when else can she relax with her friend if not now? I think it's the perfect time. Thank you so much, Mr. Miller. We'll be good girls, Em gushed. The girls agreed to leave at 10. Sarah would have just enough time to stop by the supermarket for groceries and pick up Michael at 11. So far, everything was going according to plan. Sarah thanked Emily 5 times for her help, said goodbye, and went to pack. Now she could pack freely, without fearing her father's questions. When Sarah finished packing her backpack, her father came into the room. Not asleep? No, Daddy. Come in. Sarah, dear, I don't know how to say this, he began, but for some reason fell silent. This silence frightened Sarah. She didn't know exactly what her father wanted to talk about, and it made her tense. You'll be getting married soon, and you'll have your wedding night. I know you've never been with anyone. You haven't, have you? No, Daddy, I haven't. But I don't want to talk about this. Honestly, I've read books. I know what you want to say. Let's keep this between me and my future husband. I think we're adults and can figure it out ourselves. And it's too early to talk about it. I'm not getting married tomorrow. Sarah deliberately did not say between me and Nicholas. Deep down, she held on to the hope that things could still change. What if? Are you sure? Her father asked. Yes, Dad, I'm sure. All right, then let's close the topic. I'm leaving early tomorrow. I won't wake you. You and Emily, be good. Daddy, everything will be fine. Don't worry. Sarah hugged and kissed her father. She truly loved him very much and was grateful for everything he did for her, for everything except choosing her groom. In the morning, Sarah woke up at the crack of dawn, the excitement of the upcoming event taking its toll. She quickly showered and went down for breakfast. Then she returned to her room and checked again to make sure she had packed everything. At 9:30, Sarah stood in the yard with her backpack in her hands. Emily, seeing her from her window, laughed. She waved to her friend and indicated that she would be out in 5 minutes. Sarah called a taxi. The friends got into the taxi and left. Emily was dropped off along the way, and Sarah went to the hypermarket for groceries. Having stocked up thoroughly, as if planning a feast, and buying various delicacies, Sarah grabbed 2 bottles of champagne and went to the checkout. Already in the taxi, she called Michael. Michael answered immediately and said he was waiting for her near the entrance. After picking up Michael, they drove to the country house. Michael's family's country house was in a surprisingly beautiful location. The house itself was small but very cozy and well-maintained. A small 2-story wooden house, practically furnished inside, surprised Sarah. She had imagined a country house looking like something out of a movie, semi-abandoned. But no, the house was very nice, with all amenities. There was even a fireplace in the house. The guys unloaded their things and all the grocery bags and went into the house. Sarah, dear, are we having guests? Michael smiled. What do you mean? Sarah didn't understand the question. Well, there's enough food here for a crowd you could feed for at least a couple of days. I just didn't know what we'd want, so I bought a variety of things. I see. You're a practical girl, Michael praised. Sarah was unpacking the groceries at that moment. Suddenly, she stopped and looked intently at the young man. Michael even froze under her gaze. He felt as if Sarah was scanning him. Sarah, dear, is everything all right? Yes, Sarah replied briefly and continued putting the groceries in the refrigerator. You seem very tense. A little, Sarah admitted honestly. Michael walked over to her, took her hand, and took the ham from her hand. He pulled her towards him. Sarah, darling, my dear, don't worry. Everything will be fine with us. You'll see. He hugged and kissed the girl for a long time. Sarah melted in his arms. They forgot about the groceries and the champagne and everything in the world and just enjoyed each other. Sarah lay on the pillow, looking at the ceiling. She felt very good. Sarah, dear, do you absolutely have to go to England? Unfortunately, yes. For 6 months. Then another 6 months in Belgium. Everything is already arranged and paid for. Father will never agree to cancel this trip. Although right now, I want to go there least of all. Tears flowed from Sarah's eyes. Michael felt the girl's state and leaned up to kiss her. And Sarah was torn inside by a dilemma. Should she tell him about Nicholas or not? The girl decided to postpone this conversation for later. She didn't want to spoil the moment. My dear, don't worry. I'll wait for you, I promise. We can chat on messengers 10 times a day if you like. I'm an adult and can certainly wait a year and wait for my beloved. How pleasant his words sounded. My beloved. But Sarah knew he wouldn't have to wait. Or rather, there would be no one to wait for. Because Sarah would become someone else's wife, and he would be the one waiting for her return from the trip. The realization made her feel even worse, and Sarah cried even louder. Michael, not understanding the true reasons for her tears, continued to promise to wait for her return. And Sarah couldn't take it anymore. Michael, I have to tell you something. It's very important. I can't. I don't want to lie to you, so it's better to tell you now, so I don't suffer and torment myself. She told him about her father's decision, about Nicholas, about how no one would listen to her, and about how they had no chance at all of being together. A stunned Michael looked at Sarah and couldn't understand how such a thing could happen in the modern world. Sarah, dear, this is like the Middle Ages. How can your father choose a groom for you and not allow you to be with someone else? What about your feelings and desires? Does he not care at all how you'll live with him? I understand your indignation. I completely agree with it. But I really have no choice. Let's run away together. Where? How? What about your dissertation? To hell with the dissertation. You're more important to me. I want to be with you. I feel like you're my other half. I've known you for 3 days, and it feels like a lifetime. Sarah, darling, please, let's run away. Father will forgive you later. He's your father. I can't do that. I just can't. But there's another option. I'll introduce you to my father and try to convince him to give you a chance. That's a more realistic option than just cowardly running away. Why cowardly? We're running because they're forcing you to marry someone you don't love. Those are different things. You know what happens when you rearrange the terms. Running away is always cowardice, I think, and it doesn't matter what the motives are. I'm not used to running away and I don't want to. Let's try to fight. If it doesn't work, then we'll think about what to do next. All right, agreed. But remember, my offer stands. Thank you. I'm glad you understood me. Sarah kissed Michael, and they dissolved into each other again. For all 3 days the couple spent together, they were practically inseparable. It seemed Sarah sensed that her father wouldn't allow her to be with the man she loved. Listen, you know what I was thinking? Sarah suddenly said. If Father doesn't let us be together, we can still meet, right? Are you suggesting we become lovers? Do you want me to share you with that man with the scar? Of course not. It's just another backup option. Sorry, but I don't like that option. I'd rather take you to Siberia than share you with someone else. I understand. Okay, Sarah said, disappointed. She didn't want to go home, but she had to. They called a taxi and returned to the city. Michael got out first, and then Sarah went home. She'd completely forgotten that she was supposed to return with Emily, as the girls had agreed. Upon arriving at the house, she got out of the car and slowly walked towards the door. At that moment, her phone rang. It was Emily calling. Girl, where are you? Hi, Em. I just came into the yard. I'm back. Where are you? Are you crazy? We were supposed to come back together, Emily snapped at her. Well, let's just say you stopped by another friend's place on urgent business. Sarah invented an excuse without batting an eye. Wow, the student has surpassed the teacher, Emily exclaimed in surprise. You learn fast. Em, I feel so bad. What happened? I saw. No, he's the best. I just really don't want to go back into this atmosphere. And Nicholas is coming over today. I'm afraid I won't be able to control myself and will tell him to go away. All right, listen to my command. Don't tell anyone off and wait for me. Got it? Don't do anything stupid until I get back. I'll be there in about 2 hours. Okay, Sarah agreed resignedly. She entered the house, where a surprise awaited her. Her father and Nicholas were sitting in the living room. The last thing Sarah wanted right now was to pretend and be polite to Nicholas. Hello, everyone, Sarah said indifferently. Her father, seeing his daughter's state, got up from the sofa and walked over to her. Sarah, dear, are you all right? Yes, Daddy, I'm fine. I think I'm getting sick, Sarah lied easily again. It seemed she was getting the hang of it. Go up to your room, lie down. Mrs. Helen Davis will be here soon. Tell her what you want. I'm terribly sleepy, just about to pass out. I'll call her later. All right, dear. Get some sleep, of course. Then her father remembered his future son-in-law and quietly said, Oh, Nicholas is waiting for you there. At least say hello. Sarah slowly walked over to Nicholas and waved her hand. Hi. How are you? Good afternoon. Thank you. I'm fine. But you don't seem to be. Perhaps you've caught a cold? Maybe you'd like something? Tell me. I'll do anything. Sarah wanted to reply that she very much wanted him to disappear from her life forever, but she knew he meant something completely different. So she replied delicately, No, I don't need anything, thank you. Excuse me, I'm going. Yes, of course. Get well. Sarah went up to her room, fell onto the bed and burst into tears. She didn't know what to do now, how to live on. Michael had clearly said he would never agree to be a lover, and Sarah was unlikely to become his wife. How could she live without the man she loved? There was only one hope left, to try to persuade her father. But what could she come up with to make him agree to meet Michael? Sarah didn't know the answer to any of the questions, and so she fell asleep in tears. Sarah woke up around 6 in the evening. Emily had probably come, but she was told that Sarah was asleep. She called her friend. Can you come over? Are you really sick? Emily asked. More like feeling down. I don't know what to do. Maybe you, the genius, can come up with something? Oh, this is complicated. I can't go against your father, I'm sorry. I can only support you, cover for you sometimes. But otherwise, I don't even know how else to help. All right, I'll be there soon. The girls discussed the situation for almost 2 hours, but couldn't come up with a solution. Emily genuinely felt sorry for Sarah. She saw that her friend was upset and restless, but she didn't know how to help her. 2 weeks passed. Sarah pretended to be sick all this time, regularly communicated with Michael, and completely ignored Nicholas. Her father didn't pressure her, believing that his daughter was ill. The day before the weekend, Sarah finally decided to talk to her father and asked for a meeting with Michael. Her father looked at his daughter in surprise. Excuse me, but why do I need to meet him? You seem to have made your choice, or not? No, Sarah said honestly and resolutely. What about Nicholas? Firstly, he hasn't proposed anything to me yet. Secondly, I haven't promised him anything. Dad, I'm begging you, please, talk to Michael. He's very good. You'll see for yourself. All right, her father gave in. Let him come over for dinner tonight at 7. Thank you, Daddy. Sarah rushed to him, hugged and kissed him. She ran back to her room to call the man she loved and tell him the good news. Michael didn't share Sarah's joy. He felt some trickery from her father, and he wasn't mistaken. When Michael arrived for dinner, Nicholas arrived literally right after him. Her father had made a strategic move and also invited the potential son-in-law to dinner. Sarah was furious. She hadn't expected this from her father. "Dad, why did you do this? I asked you to talk to Michael, not to set up a circus." "No circus. I just want to hear from both candidates who can offer you what kind of future. As a father, I have the right and the duty to know what awaits my daughter, who she will live with, in what house, and under what conditions. Everything is absolutely fair and transparent. If someone is afraid or has nothing to offer, there will be no conversation." Sarah understood everything. Her father had deliberately agreed to this meeting not just to refuse Sarah herself, but also to humiliate Michael, so that the young man wouldn't even think of trying to win Sarah over. It was base. Very base. She left the study and slammed the door. Michael and Nicholas were sitting in the living room. They were silent, waiting for the master of the house and his daughter to appear. Sarah entered the living room and stopped, looking at the two men who were vying for her hand and heart. One was infinitely dear to Sarah herself. The other was liked by her father. At the sight of Sarah, both stood up and froze in anticipation. Her father followed, looking extremely displeased. "Good evening, gentlemen," her father began immediately. "We are gathered here to resolve a matter important to all of us." It looked foolish and pompous. Sarah felt unwell about what was happening, but she clearly couldn't influence or change the situation. "So, both of you gentlemen, dream of seeing my daughter as your wife," her father continued. "But since there are two contenders for my Sarah's heart, a choice must be made. This choice will be made by me, not by her. Girls choose with their hearts and often don't think about tomorrow, only about today. Therefore, this task falls to me. I'm listening. What can you offer my daughter? What kind of future? How will you impress her?" Sarah looked at her father and seemed to forget how to breathe. At that moment, she didn't see him. She shifted her gaze to Michael. It physically hurt her for him. He looked devastated. He clearly hadn't expected such humiliation. Michael stood up abruptly and looked first at Mr. Robert Miller, then at Sarah, and back at the potential father-in-law. "I will not participate in this pompous circus. If you think your daughter will be happy with the one you choose, then that is your biggest mistake in life. I understand that to reach your level of prosperity, you have to step over people. But to step over your own daughter and disregard her feelings, that's too much even for someone like you. Good day." Michael walked towards the door, stopped near Sarah, and quietly said, "Last offer. Let's leave here. Come with me. You see what's happening?" "I can't," Sarah said through tears. "Then goodbye. You've made your choice." Michael left and slammed the door loudly. The crockery even rattled from the sound, and tears streamed from Sarah's eyes. She felt so unwell that her head spun, and she fainted. Sarah woke up in her room. She was lying under the blanket, in her favorite pajamas. Strange. I don't remember changing, the girl thought. With difficulty, she got out of bed, put on her robe, and went downstairs. Mrs. Helen Davis immediately rushed over to her. "Sarah, how are you feeling? You frightened us all so much yesterday," she fussed. "All right, just a heavy head. What happened anyway?" "You fainted. We called a doctor, but he said it was nothing serious, just nerves apparently." "What would you like for breakfast?" "Yes, probably nerves. Could you make me coffee with milk, please?" Sarah was in a daze all day. In the evening, Emily came to see her. Sarah told her what had happened yesterday. Her friend was also outraged by her father's behavior. "I called. He seems to have blocked me," Sarah said sadly. "And rightly so. I'm a traitor to him." "Stop it. What does betrayal have to do with it? What were you supposed to do?" "I should have gone with him, probably." "And then what? Hide from your father your whole life? He would have found you anyway and brought you home by force. You know that perfectly well. I know, but Michael doesn't understand that. I'm so tired, Em. You have no idea. Well, you have reason to be. And this headache, this nausea. You should probably see a neurologist. Let him prescribe something to calm you down. Nausea? Emily clarified. Have you had it long? No, just a couple of days. But it's terribly annoying. Maybe my gastritis flared up from stress? Sar, when is your period due? Sarah looked at her friend in confusion. What do my periods have to do with anything? Are you joking? Now. Were you careful in that regard with Michael? No, of course not. Was I supposed to be? I read that you can't get pregnant the first time. Emily started laughing loudly. Oh my God. Where did you read such nonsense? You can get pregnant the first time and the second. And you weren't together just once, I gather? No. All right. Here's the plan. You need to buy a pregnancy test, and urgently, while there's time to get an abortion if necessary. Are you serious? An abortion? I'll never do that in my life. Let my father tear me to pieces, but I won't get rid of Michael's child. Wow, resolute. I respect that. Okay, I'll go to the pharmacy and bring you a couple of tests. You'll do them in the morning, and then you'll think. To Sarah's surprise, the tests were positive. All three of them. The girl was completely bewildered. Her resolve had vanished somewhere, and she thought with horror about what would happen when her father found out. I think I'm done for, she told her friend on the phone. Positive. Emily understood immediately. Yes. What do I do now? What you planned. Give birth, of course. At your age, abortion is dangerous. And how to tell your father this news? He'll kill me. Tell him the child is Nicholas. Right? And I'll tell Nicholas it's from the Holy Spirit? No. You have to tell Nicholas the truth. And then there are two options. Either he covers for you and acknowledges the child, or he refuses, and you'll be saved from him, and you won't get married. Either way, you win. Exactly. You're a genius, as always. Sarah thanked her friend and hung up, and immediately dialed Nicholas's number. Yes, Sarah dear. I'm listening. Hi. I really need to talk to you. Go ahead, Nicholas offered. No, not on the phone. All right. Let's meet this evening. Okay. Is Pegasus all right for you? Yes. Excellent. See you. Sarah eagerly awaited the evening. Her fate was at stake, literally. She called her father and warned him that he should have dinner without her, because she was having dinner with Nicholas tonight. Her father was pleased with his daughter's behavior and the fact that she had finally accepted his candidate. Sarah arrived at the restaurant exactly at 7. Nicholas was waiting for her at the entrance. Seeing the girl, he stepped forward and asked anxiously, Sarah dear, tell me right away. Did something happen? Yes, Sarah said directly, and I need to talk to you. Let's go in, sit down, and I'll tell you and explain everything in detail. All right, but you're scaring me, Nicholas admitted. They sat at a table in the back. Sarah looked around the room and unexpectedly asked, Do you happen to know who owns this restaurant? I do, Nicholas smiled. It's my restaurant. No way! Seriously? Sarah was surprised. Absolutely. Sarah dear, can you tell me what happened? Yes, I can. I want to, and I must. And Sarah described the situation she was in. If you refuse to marry me, I'll understand. No problem. You're a good person, and I wouldn't want to lie to you. Nicholas looked at Sarah, barely blinking. He was in shock. The man knew he had to say something now, but he was so stunned that he couldn't find the words. But most importantly, he had to make a decision. But what kind? Well, that's a serious situation, he began. Then he thought for a moment and added, I will acknowledge your child as mine. I won't tell your father anything. I promise you. And we will definitely get married as soon as possible, before any changes in your appearance are visible." Sarah was surprised and even grateful to Nicholas, because if he had refused her now, Sarah would have had to endure a real nightmare created by her father. And it was far from certain that Sarah wouldn't have lost the child from all that stress. The child she wanted more than anything in the world. And for that child, she was ready for anything. 2 weeks later, Nicholas and Sarah got married. The wedding was loud and grand. Only at the wedding did Sarah learn that, as it turned out, her husband was the owner of a whole chain of restaurants, several factories, and was also a co-founder of 2 of her father's banks. This was indeed news to her. A month after the wedding, Sarah informed her father that she was expecting a child. The internship automatically had to be postponed. Her father made every effort to postpone the internship for a year. "Dad, how will I go in a year? Leave a small child for a year? Can you imagine that?" "It's all right. There are nannies," Nicholas interjected. "Respected Mr. Robert Miller, forgive me, but now my wife and I will decide where she goes and where she doesn't. I will resolve the internship issue. It's not a problem. If necessary, I will compensate you for the expenses. But I, just like Sarah, consider it unreasonable to go to another country for a year, leaving a small child without a mother." Sarah looked at her husband with gratitude. He turned out to be a truly good person and supported his wife in every way. Moreover, he promised not to touch her until she gave birth. This moment surprised Sarah the most. An adult man was willing to wait more than 6 months for someone else's child. Their family life was quiet and peaceful. In her 3rd month of pregnancy, Nicholas sent Sarah to a sanatorium while he underwent surgery to remove the scar. Sarah enjoyed her wonderful condition, but she was genuinely worried about her husband and called him several times a day. The surgery was successful, and Nicholas was soon to pick Sarah up and bring her home. After another ultrasound, Sarah learned that she would have a daughter. She was happy, even more so now. Daughters often resemble their fathers, and Sarah dreamed that her girl would be no exception and would resemble Michael. The future grandfather was also happy to have a granddaughter. Only Nicholas expressed no emotion about this news, but he could be understood. There wasn't much time left until the birth. According to the doctor's calculations, Sarah was supposed to give birth around the 10th or 12th of March. A different date was given to Mr. Robert Miller, the 10th or 12th of May. Sarah and Nicholas agreed to present the child as 7 months old, so that her father wouldn't have any questions about the timing. Today was the 8th of March. Sarah moved around the house with difficulty due to her large belly. She felt great, and her mood was excellent. Nicholas had gone to work, and Sarah was sorting through baby clothes, preparing them for the maternity hospital. Suddenly, she felt a pulling pain in her lower abdomen and immediately called her husband. "Nick, I don't feel well. Maybe I should call an ambulance." "You shouldn't have let the housekeeper go to her relatives for a week and stayed alone in the house. I'll call an ambulance. I'll be there myself soon. Don't do anything. Just rest." "Okay, I'll wait." Nicholas arrived with the ambulance and went with his wife to the maternity hospital. Sarah was getting worse. She didn't understand why the doctors decided to do a cesarean section. "Do whatever you want. Just save my little girl," Sarah pleaded and cried. "Calm down, Mommy. Everything will be all right." Sarah woke up in the ward. Nicholas was sitting beside her, holding her hand and dozing in the armchair. "Nick," Sarah called faintly. "How did it go?" Nicholas lowered his eyes and didn't look at his wife. Sarah didn't understand what was happening. "Nick, what? Tell me," she demanded. "Sarah, dear, they couldn't save our little girl," Nicholas said, barely holding back tears. "How can that be? They said everything would be all right. I don't know what happened. I don't understand these things. The doctor will explain when he comes to examine you." "This can't be." "No!" Sarah screamed throughout the ward, and burst into hysterical tears. 2 nurses ran into the ward, then the doctor. Sarah was given an injection, and she fell asleep. 4 days later, Sarah was discharged home. Staying in the maternity hospital was unbearable for her. Children were crying and screaming all around. Other people's children, living children. Sarah's heart was breaking into pieces. She wanted nothing more, dreamed of nothing. Now she didn't care at all what would happen next. Before her discharge, the doctor said that the birth had been difficult, and Sarah would never have children again. Never have children. These words echoed in her head like a sentence. Sarah repeated them mentally and aloud, and could think of nothing else. Nicholas, seeing his wife's state, decided to send her to a sanatorium in Switzerland. Sarah meekly agreed. Sarah spent 6 months at the sanatorium and almost fully recovered. At least, she returned revived and with a desire to live on, even without children. After a short stay at home, Sarah went to England for her internship, then to Belgium. During this time, Nicholas visited his wife several times, and they developed a good relationship. A year later, Sarah returned home and slowly began to get involved in her father's affairs. Her father had suddenly started to decline, his health failing more and more often, and 6 months after Sarah's return, her father made the final decision to hand over the business to his daughter. Now Sarah's new, very busy business life began. She fully immersed herself in the business and very quickly became a worthy replacement for Mr. Robert Miller. 17 years passed. Sarah was now exclusively known as Sarah Miller, and confidently not only managed all of her father's projects, but also expanded them. Mr. Robert Miller had died 6 years ago, and Sarah had no other blood relatives left in this world. Her only close person was her husband Nicholas, who had never disappointed Sarah throughout all these years. This evening, she and Nick decided to have dinner at their restaurant, Pegasus. Lately, Sarah had been so busy with work that she rarely saw her husband. But tonight she had a relatively free evening, and the couple decided to spend it together. Sarah arrived at the restaurant earlier than her husband, and sitting at the table was scrolling through the latest news on her tablet. A waitress walked by and, stumbling, almost fell near Sarah, managing to lean on her chair. "Careful, you'll break something," Sarah said kindly. "I'm so sorry." "For what?" Sarah didn't understand. "I bumped into you accidentally. I've only been working here for 2 weeks, or rather, working part-time. It was awkward. Please don't tell the owner, or I'll be fired." "I won't, don't worry. Everyone makes mistakes." "Thank you. Have a good evening." Sarah looked closely at the girl. It felt as if she had seen her somewhere, or knew her from somewhere. Strange. Where could I have crossed paths with such a young person? Sarah thought. But her reflections were interrupted by Nicholas entering the room. After dinner, when they returned home, Sarah took off her jacket and was about to hang it in the closet, but she saw that the pocket flap was turned up. Sarah didn't like her clothes looking untidy, so she straightened it. But some force made her check the pocket, and she found a piece of paper folded several times inside. Sarah turned the piece of paper over in her hands. It was clearly from a squared notebook. She hadn't written on such paper in ages. So what was this, and where did it come from in her pocket? Sarah slowly unfolded the paper and saw a few lines of text, clearly addressed to her. "Sarah Miller, your daughter, whom you gave birth to on the 8th of March, is alive. Your husband Nicholas arranged for you to believe she died in childbirth. If you want details, call this number," followed by a phone number. She couldn't believe her eyes. Her daughter was alive. With trembling hands, Sarah carefully folded the paper and hid it in her purse. Her world had turned upside down. She couldn't understand how such a thing was even possible. Such an attentive, caring, loving, truly devoted man like Nicholas couldn't have done this. Sarah didn't want to believe it, But the person who wrote the note couldn't have been so mistaken. They even got the date of birth right. If it was just someone's cruel joke, the joker would have done it much earlier. Why now? No. Something was clearly wrong here, and Sarah knew she wouldn't be able to live in peace without understanding the situation. Nicholas entered the bedroom, and Sarah flinched at the sight of her husband. Now she looked at him with different eyes. Why would he do this? Sarah tried to reason. Because he knew it was someone else's child? He didn't want to raise someone else's child and simply got rid of her? And he wanted to marry me? It seems clear enough. But can you just abandon a child? And how do you live after that? How do you sleep at night knowing that there's a person somewhere? And what kind of person? To Nick, she's nobody, so he doesn't care. But he saw how I suffered. So it means he didn't feel sorry for me either. I married a monster. Sarah, dear, are you all right? Nicholas asked, sitting down next to his wife. Yes, I'm fine. Sorry, I just had an idea. I'm going to do some work. Work? It's past midnight. It's all right. You go to bed. I'll be quick. Sarah left the bedroom and headed to her study. She didn't feel like sleeping at all, and she needed to think, and she didn't want to talk to Nicholas in this state right now. She added the phone number from the note to her contacts and checked her messengers. In one of them, this number was currently online. Should I write or not? Sarah thought. And finally, impatience won, and she wrote, Good evening. My name is Sarah Yakovenko. She hadn't changed her surname after marriage. You provided this number as a contact if I wanted to know details. When and where would it be convenient for you to meet? Sarah looked at the screen hopefully and waited for a reply. Suddenly she saw that someone was typing, and a minute later, she saw a message on the screen. We can meet right now, if you wish. Now? Yes, I want to. Sarah was full of determination. She wouldn't be able to sleep until morning anyway. So why sit around doing nothing? Then come to this address, followed by the address where she would be waiting. I can be there in 20 to 30 minutes. Is that all right? Yes, perfectly. Thank you. Sarah took her phone and quickly went up to the second floor. She peeked into the bedroom. Nicholas was already asleep. Sarah went into the dressing room, quickly changed, went down to the garage, and drove out of the yard. She arrived at the given address exactly 20 minutes later. Sarah didn't know this area well, and the private sector held little appeal for her anyway. She got out of the car and walked up to the gate. She was about to open it when she suddenly heard from behind her. Well, hello, Mother. Sarah turned around, saw the same waitress, and lost consciousness. She woke up in a house. Apparently, she had been carried in here when she fell. A woman around 55 was sitting nearby, knitting something. She was sickly thin, barely able to stay upright, but continued knitting slowly. You're awake? Yes. Sarah sat up. She looked around. The room was poor, very poor. It was clear that the last renovation had been done at least 20 years ago. She looked at the woman again and asked, Excuse me, could I have some water? You can. The woman immediately handed her a cup of water. And who are you? I am the one who raised your daughter as my own. It was as if Sarah had been doused with cold water. She jumped up on the bed. Please, tell me. How did it happen that I was told one thing, but in reality, it was completely different? Your husband saw to it, the woman said quietly. When you gave birth, he went to the head doctor and immediately said that you wouldn't be taking the child. The head doctor tried to persuade him, said that the girl was born perfect by all standards, weighing 3 kilos, 700 grams, 53 centimeters tall, an excellent baby. But your husband said he was willing to pay any amount of money for the child to remain in this hospital forever, and for his wife not to find out that she had given birth to a living, healthy child. Sarah was already crying as she listened to the woman's story. It was unbearably painful to hear, but she remained silent, not daring to interrupt or ask a single question. She had to know everything to the end. I know he paid a very large sum for that time, and we swapped the documents, stating that the girl died from asphyxia during childbirth. I couldn't have children, and my husband and I decided this was our chance. I persuaded the head doctor to give the child to me so that this beautiful girl wouldn't end up in an orphanage. I knew what an orphanage was like. I grew up in one myself. The head doctor himself didn't want to send such a good baby to a children's home, so he immediately agreed. I knew who my Alice's real parents were, but I kept silent until the end. But now I have stage 4 cancer, and I don't have much time left. I don't want my girl to be left alone when she has a living mother, especially since I know that what happened then wasn't your fault. I saw you at the discharge. I wanted so much to tell you the truth, but the head doctor immediately warned me that anyone who told you the truth wouldn't live long. Those were your husband's words, and I was scared. I told Alice everything when I found out she got a job at your husband's restaurant. Such irony of fate, isn't it? And I don't have much time left anyway. I would have told her eventually. And then this coincidence happened. I explained that you are as much a victim as she is. She has no reason to be angry with you, and she wanted to meet you. You won't abandon her, will you? Never in my life, Sarah finally found her voice. You have no idea what you've done for me. I've been cursing myself all these years, thinking I was to blame for the child not surviving, thinking it was my punishment for lying to my father, for getting pregnant out of wedlock. My God, what haven't I thought? You've given me back the meaning of life that I lost many years ago. I don't know how to thank you. Are you sure nothing can be done about your illness? I have money. I'll pay for any operation. Wait, don't chatter. No operation can help me now. The most important thing for me now is to know that you won't abandon my daughter. Our daughter, the woman corrected herself. I can't abandon her. I already lost her once, even if it wasn't my fault. Good. Then I wasn't mistaken about you. Alice, the woman called somewhere into the room. Come here, sunshine. The same girl entered the room. Sarah got out of bed, walked over to her daughter, took her hands. Suddenly, she fell to her knees and began to cry. Forgive me. Please forgive me. If I had known that my husband would turn out to be such a monster, I would never have trusted him in my life. Forgive me. Forgive me. Get up. Don't cry. Mom told me everything. I know you're not to blame. You have nothing to apologize for. Yes, I do. If I hadn't been a coward, you would have had a completely different life, a different childhood, a different education, everything different. Is that the most important thing? I'm sorry that. What childhood? What education? I think it's much more important to grow up in a family where you are truly loved, in a family where everyone stands by each other and will never betray you. Money doesn't provide any of that. I had a good childhood and good parents who gave me true love, care, affection, things you can never buy with any money. Yes, you are right, absolutely right. I will never say that again. She turned to the woman who had raised her daughter. Excuse me, what is your name? My name is Mrs. Eleanor Green. Girls, I have a great idea. Mrs. Eleanor Green, Alice, we're packing our things and moving into my house. And no excuses are accepted, Sarah said and added, we'll only take the most valuable things, those dear to your heart. We'll buy everything else. And I don't want to hear anything. I owe both of you a great debt. They moved into the house where Sarah grew up and now lived there, the three of them. Sarah divorced Nicholas. He asked his wife for forgiveness, then Alice. But Sarah couldn't forgive such a betrayal. Now Sarah's completely new life began. A life she had dreamed of all these years and which she thought she had lost forever. But somewhere deep in Sarah's soul, hope had always flickered that not all was lost yet. and hope did not fail her.